What would you do if the water in your house was just too contaminated to drink? Buy a beer! No. You boil water. That would kill most of the pathogenic organisms, avoiding the infection of your body. Totally agree with you, yeah. Where there is water, there is life. Where there is fire, there is death. In the past video, we talked about how our reality is based on what we experience as truth. And we also understood we can expand this experience by raising our level of consciousness. I suppose reaching the 4th level in the elevator might have seemed easy for you, because if you're watching this video, it's clear to me that you're part of a small group of people who are tired of living a mundane life. And even if it seems that everyone seeks to have a greater purpose or a reason to live, most people are afraid to look beyond what they see. For them, it's hard enough to recognize themselves, let alone understanding the complexity of death and the transformation it causes in the lives of everyone involved. I am aware this is a sensitive subject, and since you're still here, I am aware you're willing to go further, because you most likely have experienced darkness in its purest form. You've suffered and cried and gave up multiple times, but you're still here because you know that's not all there is. To transition to the 5th level of consciousness, we need to go through the first classical chemical stage, calcination. Here, we are entering the fire element. Fire purifies by means of a rapid and effective elimination process. Physically, we can't get back what has been burned. When we throw something on fire, it's gone. Final decision. It's over. That's why a lot of the sterilization process involves fire or heat. And that's why you cannot live in a volcano. Unfortunately, nothing but ashes are generated from fire. But ash is a good source of potassium, phosphorus, and magnesium, which makes it a good fertilizer. And this may seem like a random fact, but it will be important later on. Chemically, calcination refers to the process of heating metal in high temperature to remove volatile substances that can be toxic to our body. You can remove impurities from a substance and convert it to a more stable form. In alchemy, we're not doing this literally. So our mediator is a foundation structured by values, and that should be our inner stability. This structure will be the one to purify whatever passes through our consciousness, like a strainer. How do we create this structure? What's that about? That's what we're learning today in this video. Welcome, space-time travelers, to my personal database. I am the disruptor of ages, but you can call me Nimili. And here in this channel, we are using alchemy, psychology, quantum information theory, and other mind-blowing stuff to lower the density of our energy so we can experience a life free of worry, doubt, and fear. If you look for visuals of the 5th dimension, you will find a pentagram. But how can we translate that physical form to a metaphysical concept? Because remember, alchemy is metaphorical. So like I said in the previous video, I don't like using the word dimension when I'm talking about layers of consciousness, because they don't describe a physical space. But I know the term is very popular, so I'm using it here for you to make the right associations and understand what I am talking about. Moving forward, the 5th level of consciousness is when we break the linear perception of time, meaning that we don't perceive past, present, and future as separated events. Everything is connected, and we are aware of that. Collectively, we get to this level when we no longer perceive the edges in a pentagram, meaning that if all of the points in a pentagram are like events in a timeline, and it might seem they're happening independently as we perceive a sequence of events, they all connect and are all part of the same center, the now. So instead of having a 5 cube, we have a sphere, the sphere of memory. We experience the order of events within our consciousness, which means individually, reality will look different for each one of us, thanks to our perception and perspective. Therefore, we will remember different facts about events we share together, like what happens with the Mandela effect, for example. And we will also have different visions of the future, like cyberpunk versus solarpunk, But everything we experience now. You can be in the future or in the past if you're always here, in the present. If you're a psychic, like myself for example, you don't predict the future, but you're able to access the information stored in the field in which we believe we are inserted in. Let me explain. Whether we're talking about thermodynamic entropy or Shannon entropy, it's common to accept entropy in general as a measurement of disorder, because trying to control what's coming next is like trying to control a 15-year-old kid. Inefficient. And if you drop all of your Pokemon cards on the ground, chances are they're not coming back to your hands by themselves. Why not? All systems tend towards the lowest possible energy state. This means that spreading out is an spontaneous reaction, and releasing energy is natural. So if we are naturally and constantly releasing energy, where does all this information go? Energy cannot be destroyed or created, only transformed or transferred from one state to another. And the holographic principle, an axiom in string theory, is based on the idea that the maximum amount of entropy or disorder in any region of space is proportional to the surface area of the region, meaning that according to the holographic principle, the universe can be thought of as an hologram, in which the information about the three-dimensional objects and phenomena is encoded on a two-dimensional boundary. Can you translate that, please? Imagine we live in a sub-bubble. A soap bubble. The Milky Way is inside of this bubble. Carrots and onions are inside of this bubble. Even the love of your life is inside of this bubble. Everything we know as part of reality is within the sphere, and all the information within the sphere is also encoded as the iridescent colors on the surface of this bubble, both the past, the present, and the future. If you are predicting the future, theoretically, you are decoding the information on the surface of our bubble. However, you're only able to access that information because of the observer effect, which tells us that the act of observation itself affects the observed system. So when you predict the future, you affect the future because the future information is affecting your current experience of reality. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, Mr. White. Yes, science!
Keep in mind that we're still talking about breaking the linear perception of time. We're not talking about how gravity can cause a time dilation yet, because this is a subject we'll visit in the upcoming videos. Anyway, in summary, if you know that every future event influences the past and vice versa, for your consciousness to be present in the experience, you need to narrow your attention. And here we have a problem. Attention makes money, and you're attentive when you are afraid. That is your natural instinct. The media targeted the most vulnerable part of your psyche, your primal instincts, and injected a dose of addiction in your brain. So you kept coming back, clinging to temporary relief, afraid of not being good enough, afraid of not being updated, afraid of being left out. It is always an obsession, never an experience. When you choose to chain yourself to an addictive behavior, you surrender your capacity to see all the possibilities that are beyond your desires. And the process of non-experiencing things begins when you start distracting yourself instead of being present in the experience. Calcination is represented by the root chakra, the anchor that helps you being down to earth. This is the first step in the alchemical process to turn lead into gold, meaning that we are purifying our consciousness and stepping into a new version of ourselves. We are freeing ourselves from the feeling of need, no longer holding on to an outcome, breaking free from the fear of losing, because fear is a tool for control. You may be tired of hearing people say,
"Be yourself, own your unique characteristics,"
because most of the time we don't really know what that actually means. What do you do when you don't even know who you are anymore? You have at least 1 decade of life listening to people telling you how to behave. You're always taking into consideration how others feel about you, but never how you feel about others. You grow up being influenced by the media, and now you think that by finding an aesthetic and rebranding yourself, you can fix all of your identity problems, doing things you hate to seek approval from people you don't even like. And these things build up. You know, the little choice you've made throughout your whole life, layered one above the other. A bandage trying to cover up the past bandage. You become unrecognizable, like a mummy. How do you expect to know what to do when some self-development guru on the internet tells you to just be yourself? You mean the broken, destroyed, shameful version of a puppet? Or the glowing creative being of light that I locked away in a chest and tucked away in the depths of what was left of my heart? Be more specific. The literal meaning of power is the capacity or ability to direct or influence the behaviors of others, or the course of events. And our personal power was something we sacrificed in order to fit in with the group we admire, which is fine. We didn't need to do that, but we thought we did. So let's just take a moment to forgive ourselves for not knowing better until we know better. And now, let's claim our power back. What is the screen time on your phone? 15 hours. How much of this time you actually made the conscious decision of checking your phone? -1. Do you think the majority of this time was purely automatic? That's just how it is. You wake up and you're using your phone already. You go to bed and you're still fixated in that blue light. It feels like a loop. And the more you engage on this lifestyle, the more tired you feel. Doing less is exhausting somehow. You don't understand why. You start trying to change your diet, adding some habits like going for a walk, doing your hair, but nothing feels satisfying. As long as you can remember, that's how it always have been, right? Surrendering your capacity of making decisions because the algorithm can do that for you. It seems like an innocent act, but deciding every single day on putting the choices of your life in the hands of an AI, it's the same as telling yourself you're not capable of taking proper decisions, therefore lacking discernment, leading us to lack of trust. And if you cannot trust yourself, how can you expect to trust a cop, a baker, a driver, your sibling, your parents, your partner? But you trust in the algorithm. In fact, you trust so much in how well the algorithm knows you that you don't even question the trends. You don't care about the consequences your virtual actions will have in the external world because here, on the internet, you're safe. Right, I don't fear the internet. The internet should fear me. When we are growing up, we are trying to conquer our sense of independence. And we do that by making our own decisions. Because when you exercise your decision-making skills, you feel in control of your own life. Taking responsibility for your actions makes you proud. And we need that feeling to understand ourselves as individuals. When we don't experience the results of our choices, we start feeling detached from our surroundings, almost as if we're not really there, and things may seem unreal. Because for you to be present in the experience, you need to narrow your attention, as we've mentioned before. And if your focus determines your reality, but you are choosing to rely all your life decisions to be made by automatic mode, you are focusing on the fact that you're not independent enough, which means you're replacing the pride for shame and the assurance for insecurity. You are not being an individual, and that makes you feel bored, drained, and tired. The only way to get out of this loop is recovering your individuality by making conscious decisions, being committed to the best project you will ever work on, your well-being. Making one single decision by yourself can change your whole perspective of who you are. You feel fulfilled by the simple fact that you're the one with the hands on the wheel, something that will increase your serotonin levels and boost your self-confidence. When you're playing a game, for example, you have to follow the rules, and we have some rules in this game so-called life too. Gravity, for example, is something that I cannot say no to, or the fact that I need to breathe oxygen because of the way my human organism was built. I can break these rules and continue to play the game. Nature is fair. Everything works in perfect balance. You can control certain things in a game, no matter how much you want to, but you can learn how to play better. Trying to control the outcome of a situation is a waste of energy. Trying to decide on how someone else feels about you isn't always very effective, but the tools you can control are more than enough to mold your reality within your own terms and flip the game in your favor. Because you see, we're talking about autonomy, responsibility, and independence, but it's very common to see people confusing the act of making decisions with the fact of writing the rules. They get obsessed with controlling the situation and very upset when they don't get what they want. By far, I can tell they are not very experienced in the game, because veteran players will most likely transform whatever they get into something valuable. I can control if it's going to rain, but I can't control if I am bringing an umbrella with me or not. I can control the fact that I was betrayed, but I can't control if I'm getting revenge or if I understand that living without me is already bad enough. I can control the environment, the circumstances, or how entropy will affect me. But if I can't control how to think, feel, and act, I can control my reality. When you are aware of your experience, you take responsibility for your decisions and know how to adapt to the situations in your life. The purification through fire happens naturally with boundaries. Fire eliminates worry, doubt, and fear, leaving you with only strong beliefs, the ones used to build a new tower for yourself, one with a stronger foundation. Firm belief is your fertilizer. Whoever you wish to be is who you truly are. And now, claim your power back, or just be yourself. It's not that hard. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you find the peace you seek.